Artists, today we are going to take our template that we painted and scratched away, and we are going to turn it into our string art. So the very first thing that we need to do is we need to flip it over so that the back is showing. And you have a template at your table. It is a piece of plastic that has little hatches or dots around the edges, and if you count them, there should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. If you do not have 16 dots on your string art project, your designs are not going to turn out. So what I want you to do is I want you to trace that template. So you can take a Sharpie, try to find the center. You don't want your template to be too close to one edge, so do your best to put it in the center. Hold it with one hand and then just trace your marker or pencil, doesn't matter, around to get the circle of that template. And then what I want you to do while you're holding it steady is go through, and everywhere that you see one of those hatch marks, I want you to make a mark. If you need to carefully rotate, you can. But you want to try really hard not to move, and if it did move, you can kind of fix it. Mine's a little off right there. I should have moved it first, but I think it'll still be okay. So each of those hatch marks needs to go on my circle that I traced. Okay, so I'm going to double check, make sure I have 16. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Okay, I'm good. Now I want you to take a thumbtack, and where your hatch marks meet your circle, I want you to poke a hole through your cardboard. And be sure not to put your finger behind, because you don't want to poke through and poke your finger, but each of your dots, right where that hatch mark crosses your circle, I want you to poke a hole through your cardboard. So I'm going to pause and continue. Now that you have poked a hole with the thumbtack in each of those areas where the hatch mark intersects with your circle, I want you to use the needle. Now this is not a sharp needle, but you still need to be careful with it. We did a starter hole because our needle isn't sharp. So now that we've done the starter hole, we should be able to poke that needle all the way through to make our hole bigger. So go ahead and on each of those starter holes that you made with the thumbtack, push your needle all the way through, but remember, don't put your finger directly behind the hole because you don't want to stab your finger. Now that you have pushed your needle through all of the holes to make them larger, I want you to think about what pattern you're going to make with your string art. So this is our base, and we're going to be adding string to this, but we have to decide on a pattern. And I've given you a handout to kind of see this, but I want to walk you through it. So different choices, radiating lines. When you pick one color, start at any notch. So if my red started here, use your ruler to create a diagonal line. You don't have to use a ruler when you're sewing your string art, but the ruler helps when you're doing your pattern planning. You are going to radiate from your starting point. So that means I go from my starting point to the first, starting point to the second, third, fourth, fifth, and I do that for each of the holes. Okay, I can do that again as many times as I want. I can do different colors. So for this one, I started here, I go to each, all the way, and that creates a radiating line design, and you can kind of see what it would look like with your string. The second one is rotating squares. So it says pick a color, start at any notch. So my green started here. And then we are going to go 3 spaces before we go to the next one. So 1, 2, 3 spaces in between. So I'm going to go from here to here, making sure I leave 3 spaces in between. And then I'm going to make sure that I'm 3 spaces in between again. So 1, 2, 3. 3 spaces in between. 1, 2, 3. 3 spaces in between. 1, 2, 3. And it's going to make a square shape. And I can do that as many times as I want, just starting at a different point. So here, my pink, there's 3 spaces in between each. I did the same thing with the orange and with the turquoise. So that's a rotating square pattern. Then you have a spectrum. Spectrum is picking any color, starting at any notch, and then creating a diagonal line from one notch to the next. But this time you don't want to go more than 5. So if I went with my orange, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I could pick a new color, go to a different spot, or same color. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. New color, new spot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you will see that if I continue this, I will have a spectrum design. There's also a couple spots for you to play around with your own design. If you wanted to try doing some stars or just some geometric shapes, this is a way for you to plan it out. So once you have planned out what design you want to do, then we need to get our string ready. I'm going to show you the radiating, the rotating, and the spectrum on here so you can see how it works with your needle. And when you get the embroidery thread, there should be an end already sticking out. And all you have to do is hold on and pull. There's no need to unwrap it. If you just hold one end and pull, you're going to be able to get that thread out without ruining how nicely it's been wound up. And you want to do about an arm's length. When you cut your thread, make sure that you cut it so that the next person using it can still find the end of the thread. So don't cut too close to the edge. Now these needle heads are pretty big, so you shouldn't have a hard time threading this needle, but I recommend that you kind of fold it and then you'll be able to put it right into the needle head and pull it through. Now some people tie a knot here. I don't like to tie a knot here. I like to just keep it through and I hold on to the end of the needle tail while I'm sewing. But if you need to put a knot here to keep it from falling off from your needle, just tie it one time. So once will secure it and it will make it easy to take that knot off when you want to change colors. Now you don't need to knot the end of your string because we're going to secure it with a piece of tape. So if I start with the radiating line design, I know that I need to start at any notch and radiate from the starting point out. So I can start at any notch and I want to find the tail of my string and I'm going to start from the back. So I'm going to start at any notch. I'm going to carefully poke my needle through. If you tied it, it would be secure. And when you pull it, you don't want to pull it all the way through. You want to leave about an inch or so of a tail on the back. And then you're just going to get a piece of masking tape and secure that tail on the back of your cardboard with a piece of masking tape. And that will keep it from coming off. So I have started at one point. If I look back at my pattern, it says I need to radiate from my starting point diagonally. So if I'm here, my next hole is here. So I'm going to go down. Now I need to go back to my original hole. So I'm going to go back to that original one, carefully pulling so that I don't knot. And I'm going to go to my next diagonal, carefully pulling so that I don't get a knot. I need to go back through that original again. Carefully going to the next diagonal. And I'm going to repeat this all the way around. I've gotten to a point where I'm running out of string and I can see that I'm not going to make it back to my original and then out to my next diagonal line without running out of thread. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my needle off. I'm going to snip about an inch from the last hole. I'm going to take a piece of tape to secure that, and then I'm going to start where I left off. So I would have went back down to my starting line to come up to the next, so I can just begin there to finish my design. Now that I have finished my radiating line, I need to secure the tail on the back. So once again, I need to make sure that I leave about 1 inch of a tail left. This string could be used again, or somebody else might need to use it. And then you need to secure that tail. Now be careful when you're securing the tails that you're not taping over your circles, because your holes will be hard to poke through if you put that tape over top. So this is an example of the radiating lines. Now the spectrum is very similar, except for I would have started here and I would have done 5 lines. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I would have stopped there, picked a different string, moved here, and done it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So very similar design, but you stop every 5 and move to the next hole. So I'm going to demonstrate the rotating square now. So I have green thread for the rotating square, and I've started it the same way. I've picked a hole to start from, I've left about 1 inch on the back, and I have taped it to secure it down, and I have threaded my needle. So I am at my starting notch, and I remember need to leave 3 spaces from my starting point. So I have got 1, 2, 3 spaces, so I'm here. So I always think 1, 2, 3 square. So then I'm going to poke through there, and I'm going to be careful not to get a knot when I'm pulling through. Oops, I picked up some blue thread. Okay. Okay, so my very first line looks like this. Now I'm going to be on the back. Okay, so here we go. I started here, I had 3 in between, and I went behind. Okay, so now I need to count 1, 2, 3, square, up, and back to the beginning. Opposite. 1, 2, 3, square. So I'm going to go up and over. Okay, now I need to do the same thing, but I need this to make it look like a square. So I'm on the front now. 1, 2, 3, square. Here we go. So I'm poking through. Pulling that, careful not to get a knot. Okay. Now I'm on the back side. 1, 2, 3, square. I'm back to where I came from. So now I don't want to go this way again, because I will just be repeating that. So I'm going to go reversed now, because I want it to be a square. So now 1, 2, 3, square. So now I'm on front. Pull through. Okay. Now I'm on the back again. 1, 2, 3, square. And I should end up so that the last edge of my square is here. 1, 2, 3, square. So now I have 1 square. I could repeat that process again at a different starting point, and I could have those rotating squares. Okay, remember when you're done, you trim off 1 inch for a tail, so that way you can secure it down. I've just done a second rotating square so that you can see how they look when you overlap them. And you can choose to do just one of the patterns, like if you just want to do radiating lines or just spectrum or rotating squares, or you can combine them. It's up to you how much string art you want to put on. And I do suggest you try to do your own design so that you have a unique pattern that no one else does.